Thank you for tuning into the GSMC Soccer Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sport Network. We have a great show for you today. We will be covering Xavi's future in Barcelona, potentially being in doubt after a crazy twist in the story. Netherlands announcing their provisional squad for this upcoming Summer European Championship. Thomas Tuchel rejecting Bayern, and the managerial search continuing for them. Jurgen Klopp's, we're going to discuss his greatest moments as Liverpool manager, as his time as Liverpool manager coming to an end. And please make sure you stick around for the end of the show, where I'll be giving you my thoughts on the Premier League title race showdown tomorrow, or Sunday morning. Before we start, I would like to ask that you like and follow the show. Also, we get a number of questions from viewers that come in during the show. So to ensure that your questions get read on air, I ask to use the tips and donations link at gsmcpodcast.net with your questions. This puts your questions at the top of the list so that I can see it, and it also really helps the show. So again, the link is gsmcpodcast.net. We have to start off with Xavi's future in Barcelona potentially being in doubt after a crazy twist in the story. Okay, well, when it comes to this, we have to look back on it from kind of where we begin with Xavi and his Barcelona tenure, the discussions among it. First of all, Xavi, he came out and he already walked away from Barcelona at the end of the season a few months ago, talking about how, he just couldn't, the pressure was too much. He was asked, do you want to stay long? And he said, y'all will not allow it. Y'all will not allow a manager to come in here with a project and be able to build this project, and criticizing kind of the journalists and the fans and the pressure there. Well, he starts to turn results around. They start winning some games. They make it far into the Champions League. They make it to the quarterfinals. In the quarterfinals, they really could have moved on past that if it wasn't for the red card in a game that they pretty much, in this tie, that they pretty much were the better team, hands down, in the games until the red card, which completely changed it. But also continuing good league form, and Barcelona board was able to plead with him, was able to convince him to stay on this project and to continue with this role, and he decided to accept that proposal from Barcelona. He loved the proposal. He loves the club. He loves being at Barcelona because of that's his club, and he was willing to accept that and stay on as Barcelona manager. But then things take another twist to the story, like they always do, and now Barcelona are, in a span of a few weeks, are now debating amongst themselves with Xavi's future in a complete and utter twist. This is less than a month after Joan Laporta and Xavi announced themselves that he will continue on for at least next season. Barcelona have insisted that nothing has changed, but there are sources that do not rule out Xavi getting fired, and apparently the report also says that Laporta has never trusted the coach. Another source says there is an internal disagreement in the club over Xavi's continuity, because while certain people are in favor for him to stay, Laporta has been gaining pressure for a while now from within the board and from outside the club to fire him. Now Xavi's group are they're saying there is no tension. There's trying to calm down the situation, calm down the reports. But sources have said that they have not received any information from the board about his possible departure, despite the fact that the speculations began, a few days ago. Now, people that are around Laporta and Xavi, they're not necessarily surprised by the new turn of events, because the president is known to be, what's the word? He's known to be I don't know. I'm trying to figure out a good forward for it, but he's known to be kind of dramatic in certain situations, and Laporta. Well, first of all, Xavi. The reason why Laporta was very disgruntled with what Xavi did was when Xavi came out in a conference saying we are going to try to compete. The situation is difficult financially. It has nothing to do with what used to happen 25 years ago when the coach came and said, I like this player, this one, and this one. It doesn't work like that anymore. The supporters need to understand the situation. As the coach, I understand what's happening, and that's how we're going to manage things. Right now, we are not in the same condition at other clubs with better financial fair play. That's the reality. The fans should know, but this doesn't mean that we won't try to achieve our goals. Those comments were the ones that seemed to really frustrate Joan Laporta, who did not end up going to their game against Almeria that they won 2-0, and that moved them up to second place, and now Xavi has told reporters nothing has been, after the game against Almeria, nothing has been told to him, that there's no change in the relationship. He came out and said, I just said what I think, what's real, that we're going to fight for everything, but the situation is not easy, and we're all working together to turn the situation around. Our reality does not change. I'm looking forward to pre-season playing again with Sporting Director Deco. There's excitement, and it's an honor to be at the best club in the world with the ambition to win trophies. I just said Wednesday that the financial situation is not best, but we're all working hard to turn around and strengthen for next season. Nothing has changed, although I understand there's always a stir here. Now, sometimes it could be just media doing media being media, but the speculation is very, very loud and very, very heavy and coming from very, very good sources. Now, if this is true, for me, we don't know exactly the conversations that happened between Xavi and Joan Laporta. If there's certain things that Laporta made clear to Xavi. These are the things that we don't touch. These are the things we don't discuss. And maybe he felt like there was a betrayal in discussing things that Joan Laporta made it specific that he don't discuss about. But on the other side of it, it is very dramatic and it's very emotional, and it's sometimes not good to make those sort of emotional decisions, especially when you're at this sort of position in a club. You have a high position in there, and sometimes making emotional decisions is wrong. So maybe that's where the most of the tension comes from, just based on the pure betrayal aspect of it. That's what I'm thinking. There must be some sort of betrayal that Joan Laporta is feeling. But the sources are coming from legit sources, legit journalists who are telling people to prepare for a new potential change of scenario at Barcelona, potentially the sacking of Xavi, and the look of a new manager. Laporta is upset about realistic view of the manager about the difficulties to compete with Real Madrid next season. Hansi Flick is an option for them, but Bayern are speaking to him. And Rafa Marquez, who is on the B team, he's also an option. It's really a bad look whenever you make the decision. No, not a bad look for Xavi, but a bad look for Joan Laporta. Whenever you convince a manager to come back, to stay on, to convince him to change his mind, just to end up sacking or yeah, sacking him is just a bad look for Barcelona. And Xavi, maybe he should have just stayed away. Maybe this was just too much of a mess for him. Maybe he forgot the reasons why he left in the first place. Whenever they were going through that win streak that they were going through, when they were playing really well in the Champions League, maybe he kind of forgot. Maybe he kind of got dumbfounded by the issues that were already within the football club, and the love for the football club that he played for took over. Maybe that was the case. But we see Thomas Tuchel. He's in the situation where he had an opportunity, we'll discuss later, to go back to Bayern, but he decided to stick with his decision. Maybe Xavi should have done that, especially knowing what's going on today. Barcelona is a mess, complete mess. Financially, the way the football club is ran, it's really not the way a proper football club should run. That's why they're not in the likes of competing with the Champions League, with Real Madrid. And let's be honest, Xavi is one of the few positive things within this football club. I think Xavi is a very good manager that gets Barcelona playing better football than the talent that they have. And if it would be one thing if Xavi was just saying stuff like other managers. But Xavi is talking about something realistic. They don't have the capabilities to compete with the Real Madrid or with some of the top European clubs in the world. They don't have that ability. There are other clubs in more advantageous situations. So, look, it's disappointing how this is unfolding, but I definitely think Barcelona, specifically Joan Laporta and the board, are on the look worse in this situation than from Xavi's point of view. And I'm interested to see whether or not, he does end up getting the sacking. We're going to take a short break, but when we come back, we're going to announce we're going to discuss Netherlands announcing their provisional squad and talking about their chances at the Euros.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign.
I wanna be the greatest. Everybody on the fake shit. I look around and feel like everybody is the fakest. I make this every day and I'm impatient, hoping one day I blow up from the basement. Statement, the top is so vacant. I don't hear shit that I think is amazing. Waiting for my day when I'm playing sold out shows for 1,000 faces. Hey, give me that crown, get in my way and to be put down. It ain't your place, all this my town. If I want that shit, then I'll get it right now. I'm losing it, the noose it fits. I'm losing shit, a stupid myth. You choose to live or choose to dip. You choose to fight or lose your grip and lose a gift.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind.
Before the break, we discussed the situation with Xavi and his future in Barcelona being in doubt. But we have to discuss the Netherlands. They have announced a provisional 30-man squad for the Euros. You can only take 26, but they announced their provisional 30-man squad for the Euros. And, this is a team that has a lot of quality defensively. When it comes to defensive quality, they have the talent on that end. They got... when they have the capabilities of leaving a guy like a Julian Timber out, who in my opinion is a very good center back but hasn't played much this season, because of injuries and returning late and all that. But he does have talent, and if you can keep a guy out like that who hasn't played much football, it just shows. But when you look at the defenders, Nathan Ake from City, Daley Blind, Van Dijk, Dumfries, Frimpong, um, De Ligt, Ian Madsen, Van de Ven, Stefan de Vrij. Talented defenders, talented center backs, talented fullbacks. You know, I'm very interested to see how they want to start off, what their back line is for the Euros. Jeremy Frimpong has been amazing, a revelation for Bayern Leverkusen. He's been brilliant at that right back position, just absolutely brilliant. But Dumfries, especially in this back three the Netherlands have played the last few years, that they continue to deploy under Koeman, he's just perfect for that right wing back role. Whether they do play with the, if they do play with the back three, I expect them to play that back three at the Euros. In the friendlies, they played against the Netherlands. They used the back five or back three against the Scotland in the friendlies. They played a back four, so they mix and match. It really just depends on what they want to do. But I think Dumfries, defensively, he's a good defender, but his energy to go up and down the field and provide an outlet, he is absolutely a necessity if you were going to play him as a wing back. Now, if you play him as a right back, then that gives Jeremy Frimpong an opportunity to get in there. But whichever right back they go with, I think they'll brilliant there. Virgil van Dijk, he's obviously the captain, the main star of the defense, the main star of the team. But who plays alongside him? That'll be very interesting. Now, De Ligt, he's in the squad. He's had an up and down year with Bayern. He's a possibility. Ake, he can give you something a little bit different. If you're playing with the back five, he's a good outside center back. If you're playing in a back four, can he be the second center back next to Van Dijk? That is an option. He does have the ability to do that. He is a good option. In the qualifiers and in the most important games, he was the guy that played next to Van Dijk and brought it defensively. But you got experience with guys like Stefan de Vrij. Now, if you're going up against a team with pace, on the counter attack and all that, you can play like a guy like Mickey van de Ven. You got a guy like Matthias de Ligt. Defensively, they're very, very set. They'll be strong. They won't concede much goals. They won't concede much space. But the cohesion there from the entire team. Now, midfield-wise, you have Frenkie de Jong, a brilliant midfielder, but he has injury concerns. And then you got some guys that, haven't really hit their strides. Someone like a Ryan Gravenberg. Xavi Simons, he's playing very well at PSV. Can he come in and make an impact there? They called up Wijnaldum from who's been playing in I believe I think he's in Qatar, either Qatar or the Saudi League, one of those two. He's in the Saudi League, but they brought back him. He's a guy with experience in that midfield. Reinders have had a very good season. Koop Miners, very good season. But the star of that midfield, the engine of the midfield is Frenkie de Jong. He's going to be necessary. He's going to be necessary in that midfield to provide an outlet. He has a good passing range on him. He's comfortable on the ball. He's able to progress play. He's able to dictate play. And, a lot of their attacks will be flanneled through Frenkie de Jong. And then attacking-wise, you got a guy like Memphis Depay, someone that Netherlands have been able to, count on in the past. Bergwijn, also with pace, a guy that can go in. Cody Gakpo gives you something a little bit different. Can play in that hybrid striker-winger role right under the striker. Daniel Malen, another guy with pace. And then Weghorst is someone you can bring in like the way they did against Argentina. If you're down a goal, 10 minutes left, you can switch it, play a little bit more direct. So there's obviously the star of this team is defensively. defensively, that's the star of this team. That's the strength of this team. When it just can't based on pure talent, Netherlands defensively, they're very, very strong. Now whenever they're going forward, they can, sometimes they can seem a little bit one-dimensional, very slow, very non-fluid, just all hard to watch when they're going forward. Sometimes it is like that. I'm not even gonna. If we're just telling the truth, but this is a team that has quality, and when you have quality, it gives you a chance. And they're in a group with France, Austria, Poland. They are the second best team in that group when you look at it on paper. Now, don't sleep a team like Austria. Austria is a team that will, that are very good in counter possession. They will, as soon as they lose the ball, they'll press up high. They won't be afraid. Now, Netherlands, when they go up against weaker opposition, it don't phase them. They're still willing to play compact, to let the other team have the ball. They'll let Austria have the ball and then hit on the counter. They've shown that they're capable of doing that, and they feel comfortable doing that. Whether it is with Louis van Gaal at the World Cup or with Ronald Koeman, they play very, very similar ways. So, for me, I think with this Netherlands team is they have to keep it down defensively. They have to get clean sheets, and then going forward, they have to be clinical. They have to be clinical with the opportunities that they get. Cody Gakpo, he was clinical at the World Cup. He has to be that sort of or if it's not Cody Gakpo, someone needs to step up for this Netherlands team to be clinical and get the ball in the back of the goal. But in a group with Poland, Austria, France, that's not an easy group. That's not an easy group. You got Poland, the Robert Lewandowski factor. They don't show up in international tournaments, but they're still, they're still a factor. I told you about Austria, the way that they play counter possession, the way that they press up, the way that they don't need a number 10 because they press up, they win the ball high up the field, and then they go from there. They had an amazing qualifier, had some wonderful games, had some wonderful performances, and they won't be afraid of the bigger teams. And then you got a France team, which is the best team at the Euros. It's a France team that smacked them in World Cup qualifiers. In the Euro qualifiers, in France by destroying them. I believe it was 4-0 or so. And then they beat them on the return leg in Netherlands. They defeat them 2-1. So the Netherlands, France, they're not afraid to play against the Netherlands. They're not afraid to play against the Netherlands. And I'd be very careful if I was the Netherlands entering that game, not allowing the space that you gave guys like Mbappe in that first tie whenever they played in France at the Euro qualifier. They gave up a lot of space, and they were down 3-0 in the first half. It was a game over in the first half. Now, defensively, these players are much better than that when you look at talent, and they cannot allow something of that to happen again, because that'd be an early recipe for getting eliminated in the group stage, which is not out of the question. It's all tricky with the third place team, but it's definitely not out of the question, because I think Austria is a team to be reckoned with. We're gonna take a short break. When we come back, we're going to discuss, Bayern managerial situation.
Looking for your daily fix of sports talk without having to pay for it? GSMC Sports Network is available on YouTube. Just search GSMC Sports Network. Get your fix of daily sports talk shows on YouTube, absolutely free. NFL, college football, NBA, MLB, MMA, UFC, fantasy football, and so much more. GSMC Sports Network has shows running all day long, with new sports shows starting every 2 hours. Just like on your favorite cable sports channel, except GSMC Sports Network is absolutely free. Just search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube to catch one of your new favorite shows, like the GSMC College Football Podcast, Chip Shot Football Podcast, Hoops and Heels Women's Sports Podcast, GSMC Basketball Podcast, and so many more. Check it out for yourself. GSMC Sports Network, now available on YouTube absolutely free. Search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube right now.
Before the break, we discussed the Netherlands announcing their provisional squad. We have to discuss now Thomas Tuchel. Now, Bayern have decided to come back to an old friend, to their current manager. They wanted to see his thoughts on potentially returning, and reports say Thomas Tuchel has rejected that. Apparently, there was some talks that happened, but they couldn't agree on a deal, despite the fact that they started the conversations. It's reported that the length of the contract was the point where they disagreed. Now, let's go back to provide context to the situation. In February, it was announced that Thomas Tuchel was depart with a year left on his contract after a rough campaign. Thomas Tuchel has came out and said our agreement from February still stands. Now, Tuchel's final game will be against Hoffenheim on Saturday in the last game of the Bundesliga season. After it was announced that he'd be leaving, Bayern did go on to defeat Arsenal in the Champions League quarterfinal, but then they lost to Real Madrid in that very climactic final few minutes. Now Bayern, they've been linked with plenty of managers, and they went after plenty of managers. When you look at the likes of Xavi Alonso, when you look at the likes of Hansi Flick, when you look at the likes of Ralf Rangnick, Hansi Flick, Xabi Alonso, there's been plenty of coaches that they went after. Don't have the list, but it's been six. They went after the Crystal Palace manager, Olivier Glasner, but they couldn't reach deal with Crystal Palace. So about 6 managers that they went after, and they still don't have a manager right now. And it's a very embarrassing situation, and it's not a situation in how a proper club, this kind of reminds me of the Nuno Espirito Santos hire in Tottenham. That's kind of what the dysfunctional is. And this is a Bayern club. German clubs, they're very, very organized, professional, and, dysfunctional is not something you normally would label a team, especially in a team with, this much pedigree in Bayern, in Germany, in the Bundesliga. There's no dysfunctional at all. So, I don't know what direction they go. I think Tuchel made the great decision of not going back. You could see the relationship was kind of dead between the two, and this is not talked about, but Tuchel was interviewed by another network, and he was talking about how it's different in the Premier League. It's saying it's worse in the Bundesliga, just based on the way he's accepted, the fans and all that. He was basically saying he prefers the Premier League, and he felt more love there. And I mean, obviously I'm not disagree with him, but that's a strong statement to make when you're currently the manager of a club like Bayern Munich. That's kind of sending a message, to the Bayern Munich supporters, to potentially Bundesliga itself. Something, y'all are not like the Premier League. Now this is Thomas Tuchel that has managerial success. He's has an impressive CV. He's won a Champions League. He's won a Bundesliga. He's won multiple Bundesligas. He's won League Ones. He took PSG to the Champions League final, which when you compare it to the other managers, he's the most successful manager that was been at PSG. Whenever you look at the fact that he's been to a Champions League final, no other manager has, and they had many opportunities to win that final, and Thomas Tuchel can go in there and score the goals. But going back to him, he's a very good manager, but it was just stale at Bayern. They bring in a guy like Harry Kane, but defensively it's just they leak too many goals. They make too many mistakes. I go back to the Real Madrid game. People want to talk about the second leg, but the first leg, Bayern played pretty well. Bayern were able to get 2 goals against Real Madrid, but they allow 2 goals to come in, and it's 2 goals from individual mistakes by Kim Min-jae. And those kind of defensive mistakes will kill you. When you look at the fact that they conceded 41 goals this season, Bayern Leverkusen, who finished first, conceded 23. And they've conceded 41. That's just defensively not good enough. Thomas Tuchel hasn't been able to get that side solidified. At Chelsea, defensively, Chelsea were very, very strong. They played that back 5 or back 3, but they also had holding midfielders that played very, very compact, that limited spaces, that made it difficult for people to play in through. And we were very, very, Chelsea weren't a low block, but they were very, very tight and compact. And whenever they regained possession of the ball is when they started, releasing and started getting wide. But as soon as Chelsea would lose the ball, you could see how immediately the first instinct is to create compactness, close the space. You don't see that with Bayern. You see a Bayern team all over the place defensively. You don't see that compactness. And it is a different formation being played. You have a Joshua Kimmich playing at fullback, which is different. Is not, this is the first time he's played in that right back position with Bayern since probably in the Guardiola days. Goretzka, he's been on bad form for all of season. He hasn't provided anything for Bayern. And then, just defensively, too many mistakes. And Harry Kane, he'll score goals, but when you're leaking the goals and you're making the mistakes that they made defensively, it's just not enough. And it's very, very unfortunate for Harry Kane, who came to a club like Bayern to win trophies, to score a lot of goals, number one, but also to win trophies. But I think Thomas Tuchel made a good decision in staying with his gut. You see the situation with Xavi. He decides to return. Now they're looking at firing him from comments because of comments that I don't even necessarily deem that crazy. And Thomas Tuchel has said he wants to go back to the Premier League. He does view United as a good move. Now that's if Erik ten Hag, is gone. Which wouldn't that be funny if Ten Hag goes to Bayern and he goes to United? I don't see that happening necessarily, but that'd be very interesting. Thomas Tuchel does have a reputation of being very hard to deal with boards, with the boards of clubs. Now, he is a good manager, but he has had, he's shown, especially at, Chelsea later on, it was clear that there was a split between him and the new owners coming in. At PSG, it was falling apart there at the end, and then this year, they've had their struggles, the communication struggles, despite the fact that Bayern making the U-turn and signing him back. You could see there's definitely some disgruntledness there between the two. But there's, there's the pros and the cons of bringing in a guy like Thomas Tuchel. But it's a very embarrassing situation Bayern has got themselves in, being rejected by all these managers, and they really need to, solidify this managerial whichever way they know how. We're going to take a short break, but when we come back, we're going to discuss about Jurgen Klopp and what has been his greatest moments as a Liverpool manager.
For the best and latest podcasts available anywhere, go to the podcast app on your cell phone and type in GSMC to access free content-rich podcasts on health and wellness, book reviews, sports, entertainment, relationships, social media, movies, technology, finance, and even weird news. Subscribe and download the GSMC Podcast Network's family of shows, available everywhere podcasts are found. Before the break, we discussed Thomas Tuchel and him rejecting a potential Bayern recall. Now, it's reaching a sad moment, kind of the end of a childhood moment for a lot of us fans who grew up in this kind of era, including myself. Kind of seems like the end of my childhood. But Jurgen Klopp, he is going to be, managing his last game as Liverpool's manager. And, I wanted to just go down some of his greatest moments as a Liverpool manager, and there's been plenty, in my opinion, plenty of amazing moments. There's been some down moments, losing multiple Champions League finals, but there's also been some brilliant moments as a Liverpool manager. First of all, he is the greatest manager of Liverpool that I've seen. Obviously, I cannot talk about what other managers have seen, because that's what other fans have seen, because there's some fans that's seen Kenny Dalglish, all the Gerard Houllier, Rafa Benitez. But for me, he is the greatest Liverpool manager. The football that they played was amazing football. Gegenpress football, pressing high, counter-pressing, winning the ball high up the pitch, and not needing a number 10, because the creativity, there was no need of creativity. When you're winning the ball already up high the field, you only need that one pass to go in. That's all you needed. The way that they able to consistently press teams, press them high, make them uncomfortable, and how he used the football that he played as a way to energize Anfield. And it was a match made in heaven, the football that they played with the electric atmosphere of Anfield. When they would go and suffocate teams, the crowd would help them suffocate them even more. It was just the greatest. It was remarkable. Now, there's been plenty of brilliant moments. I'd say the one I think of first, only because this kind of changed the way we saw Liverpool at first, was when they defeated Manchester City 4-3. It was a Premier League fixture. It was a Premier League fixture at home. It was 2018, the year that they ended up reaching the Champions League final. A few months later, they defeated Liverpool 4-3. They were actually up in the game 4-1. Salah scored a worldly goal from halfway. They played that football that I was telling you about. Anfield was one of the most electric stadiums. I think this was a great moment because it kind of sparked the shift. It started the shift in us thinking about Liverpool Football Club, and it really announced them rising in this thing. Now, there was that brilliant first leg that they also had later on that campaign, where they played Manchester City in the Champions League and they defeated them 3-0 at Anfield. Another brilliant performance by them, and it was against Manchester City team that won the Premier League by a lot. A very, very good Manchester City team, and the performance that they had was very brilliant. That was a great moment for them. The Alisson scoring the header to extend the Champions League, to give them a chance to play Champions League next season in COVID, to make it 2-1 after a very, very bad season. It was just a great moment for Klopp. Great moment for Alisson also, who did very shortly after his father passed away in Brazil, and it was a very emotional, but it was a great moment in Jurgen Klopp's tenure. Whenever he took on his former team in the Europa League, and they came back from behind to win at Anfield, this was also a sign to show that Klopp was building something amazing. They drew away to Dortmund 1-1, but then Liverpool, they scored twice, and they needed to score 3 goals to move to the semifinals of the Europa League, and they eventually pulled it off when Philippe Coutinho and Mamadou Sakho tied the host, drawing the host level on the night at 1-1. But then Dejan Lovren with the header, I know we've all seen it, off of a cross from Milner to complete the comeback, and it was an amazing comeback. The scenes were crazy, and it was electric once again. Now, there's also some brilliant displays that they had in the Premier League when they defeated Manchester United 5-0 at Old Trafford. They went on the road and they just completely manhandled Manchester United, and that's what one of Ole's last games as a manager for Manchester United. Just a brilliant performance. They had the other trashing over Manchester United, and those are the things that Liverpool fans will remember. Those dominating wins over Manchester United because of the rivalry of the club, the way that they dominated Manchester United 7-0. In last season's campaign, again, that was a year that Liverpool were very, very weak in the Premier League. They didn't even make top 4 that year. Their worst year statistically since they initially reached the Champions League under Klopp. That has been their worst year statistically. It was the first time in a very long time that they weren't playing Champions League football the year after, but they still found a way to manhandle Liverpool, and it was a brilliant game for them, and it was another great moment. I'd say the EFL Cup final from earlier this year, that's also a great moment in Jurgen Klopp's tenure, just because of the fact of the kids that were on the field in extra time. Kids like James McDonald, Bobby Clark, Jadon Duns, Jarell Kwanzaa. They were all 20, 19, 18-year-olds, and Liverpool were able to win it in extra time with Virgil van Dijk's header to win a trophy, and a lot of brilliant moments. But if you have to go down to his two biggest moments, I think it's very fairly clear. Winning the Champions League was something special. Now, we have to be honest, that Champions League final was a joke. It was boring. It was nap time for most people. It was so boring to watch. It was boring football. When you watched Liverpool and Real Madrid the year before, you saw a completely different, amazing, high intensity final, and then you see this kind of boring, just lack of life football. But Liverpool were able to get it done. Jurgen Klopp was very emotional afterwards because of the circumstances of them now having lifted this up after the fact that they lost this trophy the year before. Salah was able to score the penalty. Origi second with a few minutes to go. That's definitely one of the greatest moments of Jurgen Klopp's tenure, but probably the greatest moment in probably Liverpool Football Club history, besides Istanbul, was the game in the Champions League, the game right before in the Champions League for them. Champions League wise, obviously they play Premier League games in between. The way that they were able to come back against Barcelona, they went into Barcelona, they lost 3-0 in the first leg in a game that they had their opportunities, and they lost 3-0, but the scoreline didn't really show how the game went. Liverpool did have a few opportunities. Henderson had a very, very good chance. Salah had an opportunity, but Barcelona were very, very clinical. With Suarez, with Messi, they were very, very, clinical with the opportunities that they got. And then you're entering this game. Mohamed Salah suffered a knock in the Newcastle game. And that was in a very important game for Liverpool, by the way. Keep in mind, Liverpool are playing very important Premier League games in between this because they're in the title race themselves, in a neck-to-neck title race with Manchester City. They're playing against Barcelona. Mohamed Salah suffers a concussion against Newcastle the game before. He's out. Sadio Mane, he's also out with the injury. Or no, I believe it's Salah and Firmino were out. Mane was in, but Salah and Firmino, they're both out with injuries. But Liverpool are able to get an early breakthrough, and then with Origi, and then Gini Wijnaldum, he comes in. Jurgen Klopp puts him in at halftime, and he goes in, scores a header, and then Anfield just rise. No, actually, at first, Origi scored the third goal. I mean, not Origi. Wijnaldum. No, so Origi scores the goal that happened in the beginning. Then Georgino Wijnaldum scores the goal. Then a few minutes later, he follows up with another header to make it 3. Keep in mind, Wijnaldum, he was substituted by Jurgen Klopp at halftime. Brilliant substitution. And then, the moment, the 80th minute moment, the 79th minute moment, Trent Alexander, quick free kick, Divock Origi alone scores the goal, 4-0, and it's Liverpool's from there. It's in Anfield. Barcelona don't have any chance to get a goal in that situation. And Liverpool move on to the Champions League final, and they do it without Salah and Firmino. That is, one of the greatest moments for any Premier League team in history, not just Champions League or Premier League, just in history. And Jurgen Klopp's, in my opinion, that was the greatest moment that he probably experienced. I'm not gonna speak for him. Obviously, we'd love to hear him. You could do a documentary, you could do a whole TV show on his tenure at Liverpool. But I'd like to see what he says in number 1. I'd be surprised if this is not. It's very sad to see him not be a Liverpool manager, but at the end of the day, everything ends once upon a time, and the time for his managerial stint at Liverpool is coming to an end. We're gonna take a short break. When we come back, we're gonna talk about the Premier League title race showdown coming to the final day. Today is the final show till we know who is going to win the Premier League. The title race has been amazing all season. We had a 3-race title race for majority of it. Liverpool eventually drop off after, it seemed like they were just holding on just tightly. The performance levels was not there to compete with the likes of City and Arsenal. Eventually they fall off. But Manchester City are still there. Arsenal are still there, surprisingly or unsurprisingly, depending on which side of the fandom you lie. I'm surprised by that, but some people are not. Manchester City have 88 points. Arsenal have 86. Goal differential is with Arsenal though, so if they end up in a tie, which can happen if City ties and Arsenal win, that will go with Arsenal. Now, for Manchester City, it's simple. They play West Ham United. They win. They're Premier League champions. But if they were to do anything less than a win, it opens up the opportunity for Arsenal to come in. Now, Arsenal, they have to. A point is not enough. They have to win to have a chance against Everton. Flat out, they have to win. A point is not enough. Now, if they win and Manchester City do anything less than a win, if they draw or lose, Arsenal will be crowned Premier League champions. Arsenal take on Everton at Emirates. Manchester City, they take on West Ham at the Etihad. Both Manchester City and Arsenal play in home games. Now, if you look at comments between Pep Guardiola and his former assistant coach Mikel Arteta, you see, two different attitudes, two different perspectives. And if we were to just read the quotes blindly, you would think, one manager was, you would think Mikel Arteta was the guy on the top and Pep Guardiola was in the second place. Arteta was asked if West Ham can do them a favor versus for Arsenal, going up against Man City in the title race. He came out and said, "It's one of the biggest weeks for many of us. Now is the most important moment. We are excited and can't wait for Sunday. We are very optimistic in terms of outcome. The hope is there. We have to do our job because Everton will be tough. We have to prove again that we can do better than the opponent. Then we have to wish for West Ham to have a really good day and help us to fulfill our dream." Now, Guardiola was talking about how West Ham is ready to beat Manchester United. He said this, "We would like to be up 3-0 after 10 minutes, but that's not going to happen. I'm ready for it to be tough game. I want to put in the mind of the players. Look at Tottenham on Tuesday, how they fought for every ball. West Ham will be ready to beat us. I don't have any doubt about that. It was the same with Aston Villa 2 years ago. They were in the same position. They didn't have anything to play for, and we know what happened. Our people have to come together and be ready from the first minute to be with us and do it again." Obviously that's a good point of view, from Guardiola, a good way to attack it, because last time they were in this situation, they did almost slip up against Aston Villa, took a remarkable 3-goal comeback, which they got in an emotional and a wild game. Now, if it comes down to the likes of that, can they get lucky again? I don't know, because it seems like Manchester City, they just do enough to always get past in these sort of situations. When you look at the first big title race that they went to against Liverpool, they're struggling against Leicester. They can't find the breakthrough, and if they drop points, they open up a chance for Liverpool to win the league. And Vincent Kompany comes out with that amazing strike of a goal, and that wins the title for Manchester City eventually. And then you look at the next tight-knit title race that they were up against Liverpool was when they're down 2-0 at home, and they have to win the game to not give Liverpool an opportunity, and they scored 3 goals in that second half in the last 20 or so minutes to win the Premier League. Something remarkable again. And then this year, when you look at Tottenham, they last week or a few days ago, Tottenham, you get your goalkeeper injured in Ederson, backup goalkeeper comes in, and Tottenham have 2 chances to equalize, to give Arsenal a chance to win the title. Stefan Ortega comes up with 2 massive saves. It just seems like Manchester City, they got the clutch gene. They got the players that whenever they need to make the play the most, especially when it comes within the Premier League, they're kind of like the Real Madrid of the Premier League. They'll make it happen, which is why I just cannot see them folding in any which way against West Ham. It's just unlike anything that we see from a Pep Guardiola Man City team. They always seem to take care of the games that they're supposed to take care of in the moments that they have to take advantage of, that are essential, that are high pressurized. They're not a team that folds in these sort of situations. So I believe Arsenal, they will be able to get the results against Everton, right? But I don't know. I don't think that's going to be enough. And it's very, very disappointing because Arsenal has had a very, very brilliant season. There's no denying that. They've been phenomenal this season. In many of the years, they're more than worthy Premier League champions. But whenever you're going up against the likes of Pep Guardiola and Manchester, and you can ask Jurgen Klopp. Jurgen Klopp is a far better manager than a 1 Premier League title in the amount of years he's been at Liverpool. Far better manager than that. But with the spending of power of Manchester City, with the quality of Pep Guardiola, with the mentality of this football club, with the ability of Pep Guardiola not to allow his players to get complacent despite being dominant year in and year out, to make sure for their ability to go on these ridiculous unbeaten runs whenever the club needs it the most, the way that they're able to finish 2024 with not a single loss. It's absolutely phenomenal. It's something that's remarkable in my opinion, and there is a lot of money that is spent on this team, and that is definitely a factor. And I do dock points down for Pep Guardiola when I talk about legacy because of that. But what you cannot deny is his ability as a coach, his knowledge, and not just his knowledge, the way he motivates his players to keep his players focused, to not allow complacency to get in, to the discipline that he mandates at Manchester City is absolutely brilliant, and is one of the main reasons why they are in it year in and year out. So yeah, I do think Manchester City will be the champions of the Premier League. I think Arsenal will finish second. And again, I've said it, Arsenal are worthy Premier League champions. And but at the end of the day, City is just phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal. That is the end of our show. Thank you for tuning into the GSMC. Thank you for tuning into the GSMC Soccer Podcast. Presented by the GSMC Sport Network. Your support means a lot to us. So please remember to subscribe to the show and leave a positive review. It really does make a difference. We also invite you to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, Instagram for more content and updates. Thank you once again, and have a wonderful, wonderful day.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.